The emergency meeting of the United Earth Council happened 3 days after. Jake Morrison sent the alien message to Earth. Leaders from every nation and colony gathered in the Great Hall in Geneva. The room was full of tension and fear. Admiral Patricia Stone stood at the center of the hall. She was a tall woman with gray hair who had spent 40 years protecting Earth from threats both human and unknown. Today, she faced the biggest challenge of her career. "Members of the Council," Admiral Stone began, "we have received our first communication from an intelligent alien species. Unfortunately, it is not the peaceful greeting we had hoped for." She activated the holographic display system. The alien message played for everyone to hear. The translated voice of High Commander Varen filled the room, telling the story of the Zilani and their war against the Swarm. President Elena Rodriguez of the Americas Union was the first to speak when the message ended. She was a small woman. Her voice carried authority that came from leading 300 million people. "Admiral Stone, what is your assessment of this threat to Earth and our colonies?" Admiral Stone had prepared for this question. She brought up new displays showing star charts and tactical analyses that her staff had worked on for 3 days without sleep. "The swarm expands in all directions at once," she explained. "Based on the Zilani data, they consume approximately 1 star system every 6 months. At this rate, they will reach our outer colonies in 82 years. Minister Charles Duncan of the European Federation stood up. He was an older man who had lived through several wars and knew the cost of fighting impossible battles. 82 years is a long time, Duncan said. "Perhaps this swarm will find other targets, or maybe another species will stop them before they reach us. Or maybe they will keep growing stronger," replied Director Kim Santos of the Pacific Alliance. "The Zilani were more advanced than us, and they still lost. What makes us think we could do better?" Dr. Marcus Webb, Earth's leading expert on alien life, had been studying the Zilani data since it arrived. He was a quiet man who preferred laboratories to meeting rooms, but his knowledge was crucial to understanding their new enemy. "The swarm appears to be a collective intelligence," Dr. Webb explained to the Council. "They do not just destroy, they learn and adapt. Every species they encounter makes them smarter and more dangerous." General Rick Palmer commanded Earth's military forces. He was a practical man who had spent his career preparing for wars that might never come. Now he faced a war that seemed impossible to win. "The Zilani fought them for 2 years with superior technology and still lost," Palmer said. "But they fought defensively, trying to protect their worlds. That is not how humans fight wars." This statement caused a stir in the room. Several council members began talking at once, their voices rising as they debated what Palmer meant. Admiral Stone called for order. "General Palmer, please explain your assessment." Palmer activated his own display, showing historical data about human military conflicts. The information covered everything from ancient battles to the recent colonial wars on Mars. "Humans have one advantage that other species might not share," Palmer said. "When we face an enemy we cannot defeat directly, we find other ways to win. We do not fight fair, and we do not give up." Minister Duncan looked skeptical. "You are suggesting we attack an enemy that destroyed a civilization more advanced than ours? That sounds like suicide, not strategy." "I am suggesting we think like humans instead of like Zilani," Palmer replied. "They tried to protect their worlds by fighting defensive battles. We could choose to fight this war somewhere else entirely." Dr. Sarah Williams, director of the Titan Research Station, had been quietly reviewing technical data during the debate. She was known for solving problems that other scientists considered impossible. "There might be a way," Dr. Williams said, standing up slowly. "The Zilani data includes detailed information about swarm biology and technology. They are organic creatures that have learned to use mechanical tools. But organic matter has weaknesses that pure machines do not." Admiral Stone invited Dr. Williams to share her findings with the Council. Williams brought up displays showing microscopic images of swarm tissue samples that the Zilani had managed to analyze before their defeat. "The swarm maintains its collective intelligence through biological networks," Williams explained. These networks are incredibly sophisticated, but they follow the same basic rules as all organic life. They can be disrupted at the quantum level. Captain Tony Mitchell, Earth's leading expert on space combat, had been thinking about tactics, while the scientists talked about biology. He was young for his rank, but he had earned his position by developing new ways to fight in the vacuum of space. Dr. Williams, are you saying we could build weapons that attack their biology directly? Mitchell asked. I am saying we could build weapons that make their biology irrelevant, Williams replied. Quantum disruption technology could unmake organic matter at the subatomic level. It would be like turning their bodies into empty space. The room fell silent as council members considered this possibility. The technology Williams described was theoretical, but Earth scientists had been working on quantum research for decades. President Rodriguez asked the question that everyone was thinking. How long would it take to develop such weapons? 6 months for the first prototypes, Williams answered. Another year to build enough weapons to matter in a real battle. And how would we deliver these weapons to the swarm? Asked Director Santos. This question brought the discussion back to General Palmer and Captain Mitchell. They had been developing plans for deep space operations that could reach beyond human territory. We build ships designed specifically for this mission, Palmer said. Fast, stealthy, and armed with these quantum weapons. We do not try to fight the swarm in open battle. We hit them when they do not expect it and disappear before they can respond. Mitchell added more details to Palmer's plan. The Zilani fought like they were protecting something. We do not have anything in the Kepler system to protect. We can use tactics that they would never consider. The debate continued for hours. Some council members argued for building defenses around Earth and hoping the swarm would never arrive. Others wanted to send diplomats to try communicating with the enemy. A few suggested abandoning human space entirely and fleeing to other parts of the galaxy, but slowly, a consensus began to form around Palmer's plan. The idea was risky and expensive, but it offered something that pure defense could not provide. The chance to stop the swarm before they became unstoppable. Minister Duncan remained opposed to the plan. You are asking us to risk everything on weapons that do not exist yet, carried by ships we have not built, to fight an enemy we do not understand. This is madness. General Palmer looked directly at Duncan when he replied. Minister, the Zilani sent us a message asking us not to help them. They wanted us to save ourselves by staying away from their war. That might be the smart choice, but it is not the human choice. And what exactly is the human choice? Duncan asked. Admiral Stone answered for Palmer. The human choice is to answer a distress call, even when the people sending it tell us not to come. The human choice is to build bigger weapons when we face a stronger enemy. The human choice is to find a way to win when everyone else says winning is impossible. The final vote was closer than anyone expected. 847 council members voted to approve the military response plan. 623 voted against it. 156 abstained, unable to decide between safety and action. President Rodriguez announced the results to the room. The motion is approved. Earth will respond to the Zilani distress call with military force. The room erupted. In both cheers and protests, some council members celebrated the decision to help a dying alien civilization. Others walked out in anger, convinced that humanity had just voted for its own destruction. Admiral Stone remained calm as chaos filled the room around her. She had been given authorization to build a fleet and develop weapons that existed only in theory. She had 80 months to prepare for a war against an enemy that had never been defeated. As the council session ended, Stone gathered her senior staff for their first planning meeting. General Palmer, Dr. Williams, and Captain Mitchell followed her to a secure conference room where they could speak freely. Palmer, I need you to start ship construction immediately, Stone said. Williams, I need those quantum weapons to work. Mitchell, I need tactics that can win a war that everyone else has lost. Palmer nodded grimly. How many ships are we building? As many as we can in 18 months, Stone replied. This is the largest military project in human history. We are going to need every shipyard, every factory, and every scientist we have. Dr. Williams looked worried. Admiral, what if the quantum weapons do not work as well as we hope? What if the swarm adapts to them faster than we expect? Admiral Stone stared out the window at the Swiss mountains in the distance. Somewhere among those peaks, factories were already starting to retool for warship production. In laboratories around the world, scientists were beginning work on weapons designed to unmake matter itself. Then we will adapt faster than they do, Stone said. Because that is what... Jake Morrison stood in the control room of the space station. The station floated far beyond Neptune, watching the dark space between stars. His job was simple but important. He looked for signals from other worlds and other people who might live among the stars. The control room was quiet except for the soft hum of computers. Amy Carter sat at her station, checking the long-range scanners. She had been doing this job for 3 years. Most days brought nothing but empty space and cosmic dust. Today felt different. Amy frowned at her screen. Something was wrong with the readings. She adjusted the controls and tried again. The signal was still there, weak but steady. "Sir, I found something," Amy said. Her voice was calm, but Jake could hear the excitement underneath. "It's not from any of our ships or colonies." Jake walked over to Amy's station. The screen showed waves of data flowing across it. Most of it looked like random noise, but there was a pattern hidden inside. Something had sent this signal on purpose. How far away? Jake asked. Amy checked her readings again. 37. Light years, sir, coming from the Kepler system. Jake felt his heart beat faster. The Kepler system was known to have planets that could support life. Scientists had been watching it for years, hoping to find signs of other intelligent beings. Now it seemed they had found something. "Get Dr. Brooks up here," Jake ordered. "And call Lisa Hayes from engineering. We need to decode this thing." Dr. Nathan Brooks arrived first. He was a thin man with gray hair who spent most of his time studying alien languages that might exist somewhere in space. He had been waiting his whole career for a moment like this. Lisa Hayes came running from the engine room. Her hands were still dirty from fixing a power relay, but she wiped them clean on her uniform. As the chief engineer, she knew more about communication systems than anyone else on the station. "What do we have?" Nathan asked, sitting down at the main computer. Amy played the signal again. It was a series of pulses and tones that repeated every few minutes. To most people, it would have sounded like random static. But Nathan had trained his whole life to find meaning in such sounds. "It's definitely artificial," Nathan said after listening for several minutes. "The pattern is too regular to be natural. Someone or something sent this on purpose." Lisa connected her equipment to the communication system. She ran the signal through filters and computers that could break it down into smaller parts. Slowly, a picture began to form. "There are images hidden in the signal," Lisa said. "Star maps, technical diagrams, and something that looks like writing." Nathan worked with the alien writing while Lisa focused on the technical data. Jake watched over their shoulders, feeling both excited and worried. First contact with an alien race was something humans had dreamed about for centuries. But why would aliens send signals toward Earth? After 2 hours of work, Nathan had made progress with the language. The aliens called themselves the Zilani. They were traders and explorers who had traveled between stars for thousands of years. Their message was not a greeting. It was a warning. "Jake, you need to hear this," Nathan said. His face had gone pale. "I can translate most of it now." Nathan pressed a button, and the alien signal played through speakers around the room. But now, instead of strange sounds, they heard words in English. The computer had learned enough of the Zilani language to translate in real time. "This is High Commander Varen of the Zilani Defense Fleet," the voice said. It sounded tired and desperate. "We send this message to any intelligent species who might receive it. Our worlds are dying. Our people are being destroyed by an enemy we cannot defeat." The message continued, and Jake felt a chill run down his spine. The Zilani described an enemy they called the Swarm. These creatures moved from star to star, consuming everything in their path. They ate entire planets and turned the materials into more of themselves. We have fought them for 2 years, the alien voice continued. Our weapons are useless. They learn from every attack and become stronger. 4 of our worlds have already fallen. Soon our home system will be destroyed as well. Lisa had been working on the technical data while Nathan translated the message. What she found made the situation even more frightening. Jake, look at this, Lisa said, pointing to her screen. The Zilani technology is hundreds of years ahead of ours. Their ships are faster, their weapons are more powerful, and their shields are stronger than anything we have. If they can't fight this swarm, how could we? The alien message was not finished. The voice of High Commander Varen spoke again, and his words would haunt Jake for months to come. To anyone who receives this message, we beg you, do not come to our aid. The swarm cannot be stopped. They learn from every species they encounter. They take our technology and make it part of themselves. Do not let our fate become yours. Stay away from the Kepler system. Let our sacrifice mean something. The signal included star charts showing the path of the swarm's advance. They moved in all directions at once, like a disease spreading through the galaxy. At their current speed, they would reach the edge of human space in less than 100 years. Jake stared at the data on the screens around him. Somewhere 37 light-years away, an entire civilization was dying. They had sent their final message into space, hoping that other intelligent beings would learn from their mistakes and survive. But Jake was thinking about something else. The Zilani had told them to stay away, to save themselves. That was probably the smart thing to do. It was certainly the safe thing to do. It was also not the human thing to do. Jake activated the communication system that connected his station to Earth Command. Within minutes, he was speaking directly to Admiral Stone on Earth. Admiral, we have received a message from an alien species, Jake said. They are under attack by something they call the Swarm. They're asking us not to help them. There was a long pause before Admiral Stone replied. Send me everything you have, Commander. Every piece of data, every translation, every technical reading. The Council needs to see this immediately. Jake spent the next hour transmitting the Zilani message to Earth. He included Nathan's translation work and Lisa's analysis of their technology. He also added his own report about what he thought it all meant. When he finished, Jake stood at the observation window of his station. He looked out at the stars, thinking about the Zilani and their dying worlds. Somewhere out there, people were fighting a war they could not win against an enemy they could not understand. The smart thing would be to listen to the Zilani warning. Build defenses around Earth and hope the swarm never found them. Wait and prepare and pray that someone else would solve the problem. But Jake had studied human history. He knew that when people sent distress calls, humans usually answered them. It did not matter if the odds were bad or if the mission was dangerous. It was simply what humans did. He wondered what Earth would decide to do with this information. Part of him hoped they would choose the safe path. Another part of him, the part that remembered stories of brave people doing impossible things, hoped they would choose something else entirely. Outside his window, the stars continued to shine. In the darkness, hiding secrets and dangers that humanity was only beginning to understand. Humans do when someone sends a distress call. We answer it no matter what the cost. Project Warhammer began the day after the Council vote. Admiral Stone divided the massive undertaking into 3 parts: building ships, creating weapons, and training crews. Each part would be led by Earth's best military minds working together for the first time in history. Colonel Don Murphy took charge of ship construction at the Luna shipyards. Murphy was a practical man who had spent 20 years building everything from space stations to cargo haulers. Now he faced the challenge of creating warships unlike anything humanity had ever built. The Prometheus-class ships were designed around a single purpose: delivering quantum weapons to targets 37 light-years away. They were not exploration vessels or cargo ships. They were weapons platforms built to fight and win in the deepest parts of space. Murphy walked through the construction bays every morning, watching hundreds of workers assemble the new ships. The shipyards ran 24 hours a day with work, crews rotating in shifts that never stopped. Sparks flew from welding torches as hull plates were fitted together. Giant cranes moved massive engine sections into position. "How many ships can we build in 18 months? Admiral Stone asked during one of her weekly visits to Luna. Murphy checked his production schedules. 36 ships, Admiral. Maybe 40 if we push everything to the breaking point. Push everything, Stone replied. The Zilani had hundreds of ships and they still lost. We need every advantage we can get. Dr. Sarah Williams led the weapons development program from her laboratory on Titan. The quantum cascade bombs were the most complex weapons ever attempted by human science. They worked by breaking the bonds that held matter together at the subatomic level. Williams and her team of 50 scientists worked in shifts around the clock. They built prototype after prototype, testing each design in secured chambers deep beneath Titan's surface. The early tests were spectacular failures that destroyed entire sections of the underground facility. The quantum field keeps collapsing. Before it can spread, Williams explained to Admiral Stone during a video call, we can unmake matter in a small area, but we need the effect to expand across kilometers. How long until you solve it? Stone asked. Williams looked exhausted. She had been working for 3 months with only a few hours of sleep each night. Maybe 2 more months, Admiral? The physics are incredibly complex. Captain Tony Mitchell was developing the tactics that would guide the human fleet in battle. Mitchell studied every piece of Zilani data about the swarm, looking for weaknesses that the aliens might have missed. The swarm fights like a living organism, Mitchell explained to his staff officers. They coordinate their movements and adapt to threats as a single entity. But that coordination might also be their weakness. Lieutenant Colonel Steve Barnes, Mitchell's second-in-command, reviewed the tactical data on his computer screen. You think we can disrupt their communication somehow? I think we can make their coordination work against them, Mitchell replied. If we hit multiple targets simultaneously, they will respond as a group. That makes their movements predictable. Mitchell's plan was based on Wolfpack tactics used by submarines in ancient wars. Small groups of ships would attack different targets at the same time, forcing the swarm to divide their attention. While the enemy was distracted, larger attack groups would strike at critical infrastructure. The training program began 6 months into the project. Captain Lisa Barnes commanded the first group of volunteers who would crew the new ships. Barnes was known for her skill in void combat and her ability to lead crews through impossible situations. These ships are different from anything you have flown before, Barnes told her pilots during their first briefing. They are built for speed and stealth, not comfort or long missions. Your job is to deliver the weapons and get out alive. The training took place in the asteroid belt, where ships could practice combat maneuvers without being observed by civilian traffic. Pilots learned to fly at maximum speed through fields of space debris. Gunners practiced hitting targets while their ships spun and rolled to avoid enemy fire. Dr. Williams finally achieved a breakthrough in her 7th month of research. The key was using multiple quantum fields that reinforced each other instead of trying to create one massive field. Each warhead now contains 12 quantum generators, Williams explained to Admiral Stone. When they detonate, the fields merge and expand in a chain reaction. The effect should cover a sphere 50 kilometers in diameter. Should? Stone asked. Will? Williams corrected herself. We tested it on a captured asteroid last week. The entire rock simply ceased to exist. The first Prometheus-class ship rolled out of the Luna shipyards 10 months after construction began. Captain Murphy personally inspected every system before declaring it ready for service. The ship was sleek and deadly, with armor that could deflect most known weapons and engines that could outrun anything in space. Colonel Jack Foster commanded the ship's first test flight. Foster was an experienced pilot who had flown combat missions during the Mars Rebellion years earlier. He understood the importance of testing new technology thoroughly before trusting it in battle. All systems are working perfectly, Foster reported as his ship completed its shakedown cruise. "The stealth systems are incredibly effective. We could probably fly past an enemy fleet without being detected." Admiral Stone watched the test flight from the command center on Luna. The ship appeared and disappeared on their screens as its stealth systems activated and deactivated. When fully cloaked, it was almost impossible to detect even when they knew exactly where to look. "How many quantum warheads can each ship carry?" Stone asked. 12 per ship, Murphy replied. "Plus conventional weapons for self-defense and enough supplies for a 6-month mission." Production accelerated as more shipyards came online. The Mars facilities began building support ships that would carry extra fuel and ammunition. The asteroid mining stations were converted to produce armor, plating, and weapons components. Dr. Helen Carter joined the project as Director of Logistics. Carter had managed supply chains for the Colonial Expansion Program and understood the complexity of supporting military operations across interstellar distances. "We need to assume that these ships will be operating without resupply for months," Carter explained to the project leaders. "Every ship must carry everything it needs to complete its mission and return home." The weapons testing program expanded to include live-fire exercises against mock swarm targets. The quantum warheads performed exactly as Dr. Williams had predicted, completely destroying anything within their effective range. Captain Mitchell refined his tactical plans based on the test results. "The quantum weapons give us a significant advantage, but only if we use them correctly. The swarm will adapt quickly once they see what these weapons can do." Lieutenant Karin Hayes, one of Mitchell's tactical analysts, had been studying swarm behavior patterns from the Zilani data. "The swarm seems to learn by observing and copying successful strategies. If we keep changing our tactics, they will have trouble adapting." "That means every attack must use different approaches," Mitchell said. "We cannot rely on the same strategy twice." The crew training program expanded to include psychological preparation for fighting an enemy unlike anything in human experience. Dr. Robert Shaw, a military psychiatrist, worked with the crews to help them understand what they would face. "The swarm is not evil in any way that humans understand," Dr. Shaw explained. "They are simply following their nature, which is to consume and grow. This makes them more dangerous than any human enemy because they cannot be reasoned with or deterred." As the 80-month deadline approached, 36 Prometheus-class ships sat ready in the Luna shipyards. Each ship carried a crew of 50 and enough quantum warheads to destroy small moons. They were the most advanced military vessels ever built by humanity. Admiral Stone conducted the final inspection of the fleet personally. She walked through each ship, checking systems and talking to crew members. These men and women would carry humanity's response to the Zilani distress call across 37 light-years of empty space. "Are you ready for this mission?" Stone asked Captain Morrison, who had been promoted to fleet commander. Morrison looked out at the stars through the bridge windows of his flagship. Somewhere in that darkness, the Zilani were fighting a losing battle against an enemy that seemed unstoppable. "Admiral, the Zilani told us not to come," Morrison said. "They warned us to stay away and save ourselves." "That was probably good advice." "But we are going anyway," Stone observed. Morrison smiled grimly. "That is what humans do, Admiral. When someone sends a distress call, we answer it, even when they tell us not to." The fleet launched on schedule, accelerating toward the edge of the solar system where they would engage their faster-than-light drives. Each ship disappeared in a flash of blue light as it entered hyperspace. Beginning the long journey to the Kepler system, Admiral Stone watched from the observation deck as the last ship vanished into the stars. She had sent humanity's most advanced fleet on a mission that might save an alien civilization or might result in the complete destruction of both species, but she had no regrets about the decision. The Zilani had reached out into the darkness with a cry for help. "Humma." The journey to the Kepler system took 14 months through hyperspace. Commander Jake Morrison maintained strict communication silence as the human fleet approached their destination. They traveled in small groups, separated by millions of Kilometers to avoid detection, Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, the UE's Vengeance, watching the stars shift back to normal as they dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system. The other ships in his group appeared around him, their hulls dark and silent as their stealth systems activated. "Captain Rogers, take the Falcon on a reconnaissance run," Morrison ordered. "I want to know what we are dealing with before we commit." The fleet. Commander Beth Rogers commanded the scout ship Falcon. She was known for her ability to gather intelligence without being detected. Her ship was smaller and faster than the main battle cruisers, designed specifically for deep penetration missions behind enemy lines. "Understood, sir," Rogers replied. Beginning approach to the inner system. The Falcon disappeared from Morrison's sensors as its advanced stealth systems engaged. Rogers would spend the next 12 hours mapping swarm positions and looking for any surviving Zilani forces. What Rogers found in the inner system was worse than anyone had imagined. The swarm had not simply conquered the Zilani worlds, they had transformed them into something alien and terrifying. "My God," Rogers whispered as her ship's sensors revealed the true scope of the disaster. The planet that had once been the Zilani homeworld was no longer recognizable. Massive organic structures covered its surface, pulsing with a sickly green light. The structures looked like a combination of plant and machine, growing in patterns that hurt to look at. Lieutenant Sam Davis, Rogers' sensor operator, ran detailed scans of the transformed planet. "Commander, these structures are not just sitting on the surface. They have roots that go down to the planet's core." "What are they doing?" Rogers asked. "They appear to be converting the planet's mass into something else," Davis replied. "The mineral composition is changing. It's like they are turning the entire world into raw material for their own purposes." Rogers ordered her ship to move closer to the second planet in the system. What they found there was even more disturbing. The swarm had built a massive shipyard in orbit, using materials harvested from the planet's surface. The ships being constructed were unlike anything in human or Zilani databases. They were organic vessels that moved like living creatures but showed clear signs of technological enhancement. Some were as large as Earth's biggest space stations. "How many ships are we looking at?" Rogers asked. Davis counted the contacts on his screen. "At least 300 in various stages of construction, Commander. And that is just what we can see from this angle." Rogers transmitted her findings back to the main fleet using a tight beam communication system that would be almost impossible to intercept. Morrison received the data with growing concern. Dr. Patricia Moore, the fleet's xenobiology expert, analyzed the sensor readings in real time. Moore had studied the Zilani data extensively and understood swarm biology better than anyone else in the fleet. "Commander Morrison, the swarm has evolved since the Zilani fought them," Moore reported. "These structures show capabilities that were not present in the original intelligence reports." "What kind of evolution?" Morrison asked. "They have learned to integrate conquered technology much more efficiently," Moore explained. "The ships I see in these scans include Zilani weapons and defensive systems, but the design is purely swarm. They are not just using captured equipment, they are improving it." Morrison studied the tactical situation on his command screens. The swarm controlled the entire inner system and appeared to be building a massive fleet. But they also seemed focused on their construction projects rather than patrolling for enemies. "Rogers, can you detect any swarm patrol activity?" Morrison asked. "Negative, sir," Rogers replied. "They seem to be concentrating all their forces around the construction sites. I do not see any ships moving through the outer system." This gave Morrison an idea. If the swarm was not actively patrolling, the human fleet might be able to approach undetected. But they would need to move carefully and strike quickly before the enemy could respond. Morrison activated the fleet communication system to brief his ship commanders on the situation. 35 other captains listened as he described what the Falcon had discovered. "The enemy has superior numbers and is operating from prepared positions," Morrison said. "Our advantage is surprise and our quantum weapons. We get one chance to hit them before they adapt to our tactics. Captain Mitchell's tactical doctrine called for simultaneous attacks on multiple targets. Morrison decided to implement the plan immediately, before the swarm could detect the human fleet. "We will attack in 3 waves," Morrison announced. First wave targets the shipyard and construction facilities. Second wave hits the planetary installations. Third wave reserves will respond to enemy counterattacks. Commander Rogers continued her reconnaissance mission, mapping swarm positions throughout the system. She discovered something that changed the entire tactical situation. "Commander Morrison, I found something you need to see," Rogers transmitted. "There are Zalani survivors." Morrison felt his heart skip a beat. "Where?" "Underground installations. On the 3rd planet. I am detecting power signatures and communication signals that match Zalani technology. They are still alive down there." This discovery complicated Morrison's battle plan significantly. The human fleet could not use their most powerful weapons near the surviving Zalani without risking their lives. They would need to be more precise in their targeting. Dr. Moore analyzed the survival sites that Rogers had found. The Zalani appear to have built extensive underground cities. The swarm probably considers them contained and not worth the effort to dig out. "That gives us an opportunity," Morrison said. "If we can establish communication with the survivors, they might be able to provide intelligence about swarm operations." Rogers positioned her ship to attempt contact with the Zalani survivors. Using the alien language protocols that Dr. Brooks had developed, she transmitted a simple message toward the underground cities. "This is Commander Rogers of the Earth Defense Fleet. We received your distress call and have come to help. Please respond if you can hear this message." The reply came back within minutes, transmitted on an encrypted frequency that the swarm had apparently not detected. "Earth ship, this is High Counselor Thurin of the Zalani Republic. We thought we were alone." "How many ships did Earth send?" Rogers hesitated before answering. 36 ships seemed like a pitifully small force compared to the hundreds of swarm vessels in the system. "We have sufficient forces to engage the enemy," Rogers replied diplomatically. "Can you provide current intelligence on swarm capabilities and positions?" High Counselor Thurin transmitted detailed information about swarm operations over the past 6 months. The data revealed that the enemy was preparing for a major expansion into neighboring star systems. "They are building a fleet 3 times larger than the one that conquered our worlds," Thurin explained. "In 6 months, they will launch attacks on 12 nearby systems simultaneously. Millions of innocent beings will die." Morrison realized that the human fleet was not just fighting to save the Zalani. They were fighting to prevent the swarm from spreading to dozens of other worlds. The stakes were higher than anyone had imagined. The first swarm patrol detected Rogers' ship while she was communicating with the Zalani. 3 organic vessels moved to investigate the area where the Falcon was hiding. "Commander, I have been spotted," Rogers reported. 3 enemy ships approaching my position." Morrison made a quick decision. "All ships, implement attack plan immediately. Rogers, break contact and rejoin the fleet." The battle for the Kepler system began with a devastating surprise attack. 12 human ships emerged from stealth and launched their quantum warheads at the main swarm shipyard. The alien construction facility simply ceased to exist, taking 200 partially completed ships with it. The quantum weapons performed exactly as Dr. Williams had predicted. The swarm ships caught in the blast radius were not just destroyed, they were unmade at the molecular level. For the first time in their expansion across the galaxy, the swarm encountered weapons that could permanently remove their resources from the battlefield, but the enemy adapted quickly. Within hours of the first attack, swarm ships began moving in unpredictable patterns that made targeting difficult. They also started using Zalani shield technology to protect their most important installations. "They are learning from our tactics faster than expected," Captain Mitchell reported from his ship, the UES Thunder. "We need to change our approach before they develop countermeasures." Morrison ordered the fleet to implement the second phase of their attack plan. Instead of trying to destroy all swarm forces directly, They would target the infrastructure that supported the enemy's expansion. Focus on the planetary installations, Morrison commanded. If we can disrupt their resource gathering, we can slow their growth. The battle continued for 3 days as human ships struck at targets throughout the system. They used hit-and-run tactics, appearing suddenly to launch their weapons and then disappearing before the swarm could respond effectively. But Morrison knew that they were fighting against time. The swarm was adapting to human tactics with every act. The battle for the Kepler system lasted 6 months. Commander Morrison's fleet fought a grinding campaign against an enemy that grew stronger with each passing day. The swarm learned from every human attack, adapting their defenses and developing new strategies to counter Earth's tactics. Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance, studying the latest intelligence reports. His fleet had started with 36 ships. Now he had 24 vessels still capable of combat. The swarm had lost hundreds of ships, but they continued building new ones faster than the humans could destroy them. "Sir, we are receiving a priority transmission from Dr. Carter," reported Lieutenant Hayes. The communications officer. Dr. Helen Carter appeared on the main screen, calling from her research vessel at the edge of the system. Carter had been analyzing swarm technology and biology throughout the campaign, looking for weaknesses that could turn the tide of battle. "Commander, I found something important," Carter said. "The swarm is not just one organism, it is a network of connected intelligences. They maintain this network through organic communication nodes located throughout their territory." Morrison leaned forward in his command chair. "What kind of nodes?" "Massive biological structures that act like communication relays," Carter explained. "They are hidden deep inside the planetary installations. If we could destroy the primary node, it might disrupt their entire network." Captain Rogers, who had been leading reconnaissance missions throughout the campaign, joined the conversation. From her ship, "Dr. Carter, I think I know where the primary node is located. There is a structure at the center of the main planetary installation that is different from all the others." "Different how?" Morrison asked. "It is older and more complex." Rogers replied, "My scans show that it has connections to every other swarm facility in the system. It also appears to be heavily defended." Morrison realized that this could be the breakthrough they needed. But attacking the primary node would require a direct assault on the most heavily defended position in the system. It would be a suicide mission for whoever attempted it. "How many ships would we need for the attack?" Morrison asked. Captain Mitchell, who had been developing new tactics throughout the campaign, provided his assessment. "At least 12 ships to penetrate their defenses. Maybe more if they detect us early." Morrison looked at the tactical display showing his remaining forces. Committing 12 ships to this attack would leave him with barely enough vessels to protect the rest of the fleet if the mission failed. "There is another problem," Dr. Carter added. "The primary node is located directly beneath the largest Zilani survivor settlement. If we use quantum weapons, we will kill thousands of innocent people." This created an impossible choice for Morrison. He could save the galaxy by destroying the swarm network, but only by sacrificing the very people his fleet had come to rescue. High Counselor Thurn resolved the dilemma in a way that Morrison had not expected. The Zilani leader contacted the human fleet directly, speaking for all the survivors in the underground cities. "Commander Morrison, we have been monitoring your communications," Thurn said. "We understand the situation. Use your weapons. Do not let our deaths be meaningless." Morrison felt the weight of command settle on his shoulders like a physical burden. He was being asked to make a decision that would determine the fate of multiple civilizations. "Counselor, there must be another way," Morrison replied. "We did not come here to destroy the people we were trying to save." "You came here to stop the swarm," Thurn corrected him. "We are already dead, Commander. The swarm will consume us eventually, just as they consumed our worlds. But if our deaths can prevent them from spreading to other systems, then we die with purpose." Morrison gathered his senior officers for an emergency planning session. They had 6 hours before the swarm completed construction of their next wave of expansion ships. After that, It would be too late to prevent the enemy from spreading to other star systems. There has to be another option, insisted Captain Barnes, commander of the UES Phoenix. We cannot just kill thousands of innocent people. Dr. Carter had been working on the problem since her discovery of the communication network. There might be a way to disrupt the network without destroying the entire node. If we could get close enough to plant a quantum charge inside the structure itself, that would require landing troops on the planet's surface, Mitchell observed. The swarm would detect any landing craft long before it reached the target. Rogers had been studying the planetary defenses while the others talked. Not necessarily. The Zilani have been moving through underground tunnels for months without being detected. If we could reach one of their settlements, we might be able to approach the target from below. Morrison realized that this plan would require a small team to penetrate swarm territory on foot and plant explosives at the heart of the enemy network. It was incredibly dangerous, but it offered a chance to complete the mission without sacrificing the Zilani survivors. I will lead the ground team, Morrison announced. Sir, you are needed here to command the fleet, protested Captain Mitchell. The fleet will be fine under Captain Rogers' command, Morrison replied. This mission requires someone who understands the strategic situation completely. That is me. Morrison selected a team of 12 volunteers for the ground mission. They would use the scout ship Falcon to reach the planet's surface and make contact with the Zilani resistance. From there, they would attempt to reach the primary communication node and plant a quantum charge that would disrupt the swarm. NETWRK Dr. Carter provided Morrison's team with a prototype quantum device designed specifically for this mission. Unlike the warheads used by the fleet, this device would create a controlled disruption that would disable the communication network without destroying everything in the area. The device needs to be placed at the exact center of the node structure, Carter explained. Even a few meters off target might not be enough to disrupt the entire network. Morrison and his team launched from the Vengeance in the early morning hours of the 6th day. The Falcon used its stealth systems to penetrate the planetary atmosphere without being detected by swarm patrols. They landed near a Zilani settlement that was connected to the tunnel network leading to the primary node. High Counselor Thurin met them personally, leading Morrison's team through passages that had been carved from solid rock over thousands of years. The swarm knows these tunnels exist, but they do not consider us a threat, Thurin explained as they move through the darkness. They are focused on their expansion plans and ignore anything that does not interfere with their construction. The journey to the primary node took 18 hours through tunnels that stretched for hundreds of kilometers beneath the planet's surface. Morrison's team moved carefully, avoiding the few areas where swarm sensors might detect their presence. When they finally reached the target area, Morrison understood why the swarm considered this structure so important. The primary communication node was a living cathedral of organic technology that stretched from the tunnel level to the planet's surface above. My God, whispered Sergeant Collins, one of Morrison's team members. It is like looking inside the brain of some giant creature. Dr. Moore, who had joined the ground team to provide expertise on swarm biology, confirmed Collins' observation. That is essentially what this is. The node processes information from every swarm facility in the galaxy and coordinates their activities. Morrison studied the structure, looking for the best place to position Carter's quantum device. The center of the node was protected by layers of organic armor that would be difficult to penetrate. There, Morrison said, pointing to a junction where multiple communication pathways converged. If we can get the device to that position, it should be able to disrupt the entire network. Getting to the target position required Morrison's team to climb through the living structure itself. The organic walls pulsed with alien thoughts as the node processed information from across the galaxy. Morrison could feel the collective intelligence of the swarm. Flowing around him like a river of consciousness, they reached the target junction. Just as swarm security systems detected their presence, alarm signals spread through the structure as the node tried to summon defenders to protect itself. Plant the device now, Morrison ordered. We have maybe 2 minutes before they arrive. Dr. Moore activated Carter's quantum device and placed it at the exact center of the junction. The device began charging immediately, building up the energy needed to disrupt the communication network. Swarm defenders poured into the chamber as Morrison's team tried to escape. The aliens were unlike anything the humans had encountered before. Part machine, part organism, and entirely focused on protecting their primary node. "Move! Move! Move!" Morrison shouted as his team fought their way back toward the tunnel entrance. 3 of his people fell to swarm weapons before they reached safety. The quantum device detonated just as Morrison's team entered the tunnel system. The explosion was contained within the node structure, but its effects spread throughout the swarm network instantly. Above ground, Captain Rogers watched from the Falcon as every swarm facility in the system went dark simultaneously.